The day started the way most of mine do. I was in my kitchen, still in my robe, with the radio humming out old gospel hymns like Mahalia Jackson was singing just for me. The smell of Maxwell House coffee filled the room. My old iron hissed on the board like it had something to say, and I was pressing the dress I planned to wear to my daughter's birthday party. Pale yellow, soft fabric, the kind that feels like Sunday. Pictures lined the walls, my babies when they were little, me in my nursing scrubs, tired but proud. Marches. I stood in back when I was just a girl with too much fire in her chest and not enough money in her pockets. The hats on top of the closet reminded me of church days, when you didn't go nowhere without showing respect. Not to God, not to yourself. This was my space. Every inch of it held a piece of who I am. I'd spent my life building for my children. Double shifts at the hospital, skipping vacations, cutting corners so they never had to. I didn't talk about the sacrifices. That's what love does. It works in silence. It hopes. It believes. The phone rang around 10. I figured it was her, my daughter, calling to finalize plans, maybe asking me to pick up something from the store or come early to help with the setup like I always did. "Hello?" I said, holding the phone with my shoulder while folding the warm dress. Her voice was sharp, impatient. "Mama, you don't need to come to the party." I paused, thinking maybe I misheard. "What you mean, baby?" "You're not invited." My hand gripped the counter. The iron kept hissing beside me, like it was frozen in time. I didn't even move it, just stood there, the weight of those 3 words pressing down on my chest. "You're not invited." She didn't explain, just said she had to go and hung up like we were strangers, like I was some neighbor asking to borrow sugar instead of the woman who carried her into this world. I stood there in my little kitchen, the gospel song still playing like it didn't hear what just happened. My legs felt weak, but I stayed standing. I could almost hear my grandma's voice in my head. "Sometimes the knife comes from your own table." I whispered it, barely breathing. "Lord, give me strength." I sat at the kitchen table. The coffee had gone cold. I didn't even drink it, just stared out the window like the answers were waiting for me in the trees. Memories hit me like waves. Her 5th birthday, the Barbie cake I stayed up all night to make. The time she broke her leg and I slept on that hospital chair for 4 nights. Christmas mornings when I gave her the last piece of ham, though my stomach growled. I picked up my phone, typed out why, deleted it, tried again. What did I do? Deleted that too. I wasn't going to beg for answers she didn't feel I deserved. I thought about something Maya Angelou once said. Never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. That line stung different when it's your own child. I had spent decades being the glue, and here I was, erased with a phone call. I don't remember walking to the bedroom, but I found myself there, staring at my phone. I opened my travel app. Not because I had a plan, just, I needed a way out. Something that wasn't this. Holland. That old friend of mine had invited me years ago. I never went. Always said I couldn't leave the kids, couldn't take time for myself. But they're grown now. She made that clear. I hovered over the confirm button. My hand was shaking. This wasn't about revenge. I wasn't gonna storm over there and demand a seat at a table I'd built. No. This was a retreat, a quiet stepping back. She didn't want me there? Fine. I'd stop making space where I wasn't welcome. I reached into my drawer and touched the amber necklace. My husband gave it to me before he passed, said it reminded him of my spirit, warm and strong. I touched it, just for a second, then shut the drawer. I packed slow, a couple dresses, my walking shoes, that old journal I never wrote in. As I rolled my clothes, I remembered how she once taught me that trick for packing tight. I paused. The irony burned. I left the yellow dress hanging on the chair, the one I ironed that morning, let it sit there, like a ghost of what could have been. I whispered a prayer. Not for forgiveness. I was done bleeding for nothing. "I hope she finds peace," I said. "But I ain't begging to be hurt." I locked the door behind me. The apartment felt warm. Still, but this time, I wasn't leaving it behind. I was carrying it with me. At the airport, I sat by the window, watching planes rise into the sky. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. Just breathed, in and out. By the time the plane lifted off, I still didn't know if I was running away or finally going home. The plane wheels kissed the tarmac with a soft thud, and just like that, I was in Holland. Outside the window, clouds hung low like they didn't trust the sky to hold them. Gray light leaked through, cold and dull, the kind of light that makes you pull your coat tighter, even indoors. As I walked off the plane, the air hit me with a quiet chill. Not bone deep, but enough to remind you that you're somewhere unfamiliar. The signs above my head were in Dutch, all those letters pressed together, none of them kind. The people walked fast, coats flapping, not one face looking for mine. It had been over 30 years since I'd flown this far from home. Last time, my husband was holding my hand and talking my ear off about how tiny the houses looked from above. This time, all I had was a worn-out suitcase, a small one. I don't pack heavy. Just what I need, and no more. As I stepped into the terminal, I reached for my phone, hoping, no, expecting, a message. Something short. "Welcome, Mama." But there was nothing, just the last message I'd sent weeks ago that never got a reply. The screen went black again, so did a part of me. I stood near the exit doors, watching people meet and melt into hugs. Fathers picking up daughters, grandmothers crying over grandbabies they hadn't seen in years, a young couple kissing like the world was ending, and me, just standing, clutching the strap of my purse like it could hold me up. A tall Dutch girl in a navy coat stopped in front of me. "Are you lost?" she asked, in slow English. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "No, baby, just misplaced." She nodded politely and disappeared into the crowd. I was still standing there when the clock above the door clicked 15 minutes past the hour. I pulled up my daughter's messages again, scanned them, hoping I missed something, anything that hinted she'd be here. Nothing. No flight details, no address, just silence, dressed up as distance. "If the welcome don't come," I whispered to myself, "maybe the peace will." I walked away from the glass doors. Didn't rush. There was nowhere to be. Not anymore. Years ago, when she said she was moving to Holland, I bit my tongue bloody, said I understood when I didn't. I believed in family staying close, Sunday dinners, birthdays, the kind of love that shows up even when it's tired. She said she needed space, freedom, promised to call every Sunday. The calls stopped last spring. You don't lose a child in one day. You lose them slow, inch by inch. Silence by silence. Outside, I hailed a cab and gave the address of a guest house a friend had once mentioned, run by a Surinamese woman named Marva. Didn't know much more than that, but it felt better than standing still. The room was small, clean, one window, one chair. The walls were painted soft yellow, and it smelled faintly of jasmine. I set my suitcase down and placed my church hat on the chair. Just because nobody saw me didn't mean I wouldn't hold my head up. I wanted to call her. Just once. Maybe she forgot. Maybe something came up. But my finger hovered over the screen, then pulled back. They knew I was coming. If they wanted me, they'd find me. I sat by the window and watched the bicycles zoom by. Everyone here seemed in a hurry, but no one looked stressed. Like the cold was normal. Like the silence was part of the rhythm. This city don't have a place for heartbreak, but I brought mine anyway. The next morning, I bundled up and stepped out. Might as well see what I came this far to see. The streets were narrow, framed by crooked buildings and canals that cut through the city like veins. I walked slow. Not because I was tired, but because I had nothing to rush toward. The bakery I found was tucked into a corner, warm with smells I didn't recognize. I pointed at a sandwich and paid in cash. Sat outside on a bench and ate, chewing slow. Watching, listening, everyone speaking in their fast, musical language. No one spoke to me, and I didn't mind. "Well," I said to myself between bites, "here I am." I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel broken either. Just here, holding my silence like a coat I couldn't take off. That night, I returned to the room, didn't turn on the TV, just sat by the heater, letting it hum beside me. The next morning, I got a message, but it wasn't from who I hoped. The room was quiet except for the soft clicking of my pen. I sat at the small desk in Marva's guest house, journal open, pages filled with notes, Dates, vendors, transfers, screenshots taped in with care. I hadn't planned to be an accountant in my old age, but here I was, balancing numbers and memories. I read each line slowly, matching payments I'd made with the pieces I saw at the party. Table rentals, flower vendors, that gospel singer they used to love. All of it paid, all of it by me. I flipped to a clean page, began drafting what I'd say if I had to. Not a speech for applause, just truth, calm, firm, measured. Family doesn't get to erase the one who kept the lights on, I murmured, testing my tone. If they deny me, I'll show them my receipts. I looked up Marva's number on my phone. Hit call. It rang, went to voicemail. I tried texting instead. Do you know anyone who can help verify contract legality here? No reply. Maybe she was busy. Or maybe folks around here knew when something was about to go down and chose silence. I closed my eyes, leaned back, and hummed the tune of His Eye is on the Sparrow. The old church songs had a way of stitching me together. I sing because I'm happy, I whispered. I sing because I'm free. By mid-afternoon, I walked to the cafe across from the venue. One of my old choir friends had slipped me the time and location earlier that week. She didn't say much, just, they'll be gathering. You deserve to know. I ordered tea, kept my coat on, and sat by the window. From here, I could see the staff entering, the decorators finishing up. I had an earpiece in, connected to a live stream my friend had set up from inside. It was muted at first, just a sea of faces moving around, clinking glasses. Then the program began. I waited for the segment labeled Legacy Tribute. That's where my name was supposed to be mentioned. A video montage, a voiceover I'd recorded. But as soon as the MC started speaking, he skipped right past it. Due to some minor issues, he said, we're moving ahead. The screen cut to another speaker. My part? Gone. I leaned forward, hands trembling, but my breath steady. On screen, I saw those white roses, same ones I ordered from that boutique florist in Atlanta. The logo hadn't even changed. She'd taken my help, my planning, my money, but not my presence. I walked back to the guest house without looking at the people around me, just one step at a time. Once inside, I reached for my laptop, pulled out the USB I'd brought with me. A quiet storm began with a click. Vendor lists, invoices, contracts with my name on them, clear as day. And then, a different folder. Revised documents, same vendors, but now listing Quinzara or her nonprofit as the payer. Subtle edits, a different signature, debts reassigned. I checked the dates, compared them to my bank statements. Monthly withdrawals, small, unnoticeable unless you lined them up side by side. They moved my money but erased my name. I emailed copies to myself, backed them up twice. My fingers hovered over her contact photo. Then I lowered the phone. This wasn't the time to scream. Not yet. I sat with that truth like it was a hot cup I couldn't put down. I thought of standing up at the party, taking the mic, telling the whole room, but something held me back. My own voice whispering, not like this. I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted the truth to breathe. When did she forget what I taught her? I asked the air. Was it when she got her first promotion, or when I started needing help getting upstairs? A line from Sister Bryant came back to me. When you're erased, show them your own shadows first. Maybe that meant exposing the quiet betrayals, the kind no one sees until you point a light. It was almost evening now. I stood, straightened my blouse, packed the documents in my bag. I'd planned to just observe, just listen, but plans have a way of changing when you see your name stolen in ink. I walked back toward the venue, calm in my step, no anger left in my feet, just purpose. The lobby was warm and bright, laughter bouncing off the walls. I moved through the crowd like a memory no one invited. And then I saw her, Quinzara, stepping into the spotlight, lips parting, ready to say something, maybe even my name, but I spoke first. The hallway was silent, long and polished, like someone had just scrubbed it clean of guilt. I stepped through the double doors, slow and steady, not rushing the moment. Let them see me, let them feel it. The room hushed like I'd walked in with thunder behind me. Dark wood walls, amber lights casting long shadows. A long dining table stretched through the center, dressed in white linen and tall centerpieces. The air smelled of roasted duck, sour wine, and money. I caught eyes as I passed. Some looked down at their plates. Others offered tight-lipped smiles, masks of politeness that barely held. The Dutch investors, the so-called advisors, and a few familiar faces from back home. People who used to greet me with warmth, but now watched like I was an interruption. I carried the folder against my ribs. I didn't show it, not yet. There's a time to strike and a time to stand still. My father used to say, "A calm woman can move a mountain." And I was as still as stone. Quinzara didn't speak as I walked around the table. She leaned back in her chair, lips pressed, eyes scanning me like I was a headline she didn't want to read. I pulled out the chair at the far end and sat. No welcome, no toast in my name. Just silence and clinking silverware. "I won't keep y'all long," I said. My voice was soft, but every syllable landed. I didn't come to claim anything. I came to protect what's already mine. Forks froze mid-air. Nobody moved. I helped build this brand, not out of vanity, not for attention, but from scratch, with sacrifice. And if you continue trying to erase me, you're tearing out the very foundation you're standing on. I paused. Let the words sit. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't wave the folder around. I let the air work for me. An investor shifted uncomfortably. Someone cleared their throat. Quinzara's lip twitched like she was holding back a smirk. Then she laughed. Quiet, sweet, rehearsed. "Oh, Mama," she said, shaking her head like I was a child. "You're still thinking this is a church raffle or something. This isn't the past. This is my time. You gave. I'm grateful. But this is mine now." She turned to the others and added, "She's not on any formal board. She doesn't own a percentage. She's just family. Just family." That sat in the room like smoke. Someone gasped. One of the investors blinked rapidly, uncomfortable. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. But inside, it split something. She was trying to rewrite me out loud, and not just to me, but to people who barely knew the truth. To men with money and papers in Dutch I couldn't yet fully translate. I gathered every word she spoke, not just to remember, but to record them into my resolve. My silence was burning off like fog under sun. I almost stood, almost turned and left. That old pull to protect my peace, let the hurt pass. But then I remembered the cut speech, the files, the shifts in the bank account, my granddaughter. If I left that room quiet, she'd learn silence too, learn to shrink. I leaned forward again. My voice dropped. "This is my last warning," I said, locking eyes with her. "Don't mistake my silence for absence." That line hit the room like a warning bell. No need to raise my tone. I knew what I carried. I didn't open the folder yet. Just let the weight of what I didn't say speak loud. Eyes flicked between us. Nobody chewed. Nobody reached for a drink. Quinzara held her glass up, face smooth and smug. "To legacy," she said, her voice just loud enough to dig at me. And just as the rim touched her lips, I laid the folder on the table. Flat, clean, deliberate. Every head turned. Back at the guest house, my room had turned into something else. The lace curtains drawn, laptop on the desk, phone plugged in next to a pile of receipts and handwritten notes. I'd come here thinking I'd need a place to sleep. What I'd built instead was a command center. Outside, cyclists kept gliding through the wet street, their bells faint through the glass. Inside, I sat in the glow of my screen, steadying my breath. The folder from the hotel dinner still lay on the bed. I hadn't opened it since placing it down in front of her. But tonight wasn't about paper. Tonight was about proof. I opened Instagram first. Quinzara's face filled the screen. New photos from the party. Candles, speeches, investors smiling, captions thanking everyone who made it possible. No mention of me, not even a single tag. Scrolling down, I saw a friend of hers had commented, "Why didn't you tag your mother?" The comment vanished before my eyes, deleted, like I hadn't existed. My jaw locked. And I whispered to myself, so they erased me twice, once in life, once in feed. I started taking screenshots, every image, every caption, saving them to a hidden folder on my laptop. They could delete the posts. They couldn't delete my records. The sting in my chest sharpened, but under it, a flicker of something steadier. No more silence. No more waiting for them to hand me crumbs of acknowledgement. Then, an email pinged. A subject line. For clarity. No sender name I recognized. My heart thudded as I clicked. Attached was a PDF, dozens of pages, contracts, itemized vendor payments, markup fees, all in my name. I scrolled faster, my signature at the bottom of invoices I'd never seen. They'd used my funds and run them through third parties to make it look like someone else had bankrolled the event. I sat back, breathing slow through my nose. Stay calm, I told myself. Proof is power. I copied the file, time-stamped it, backed it up on 2 drives. The longer I read, the clearer it became. Not just disrespect, theft, deception under my own roof, with my own child's hands. I closed my eyes and the faces of the night flashed. Quinzara's smirk, the investors shifting in their seats, every slight I'd brushed off, every missing credit on a program, every polite smile I'd forced. They thought my silence meant they owned me, I muttered. Not anymore. I drafted a message to send to every guest at that dinner, fingers poised over the keyboard, a full exposé, the contracts, the photos, the evidence. My thumb hovered over send. I hesitated. Impact mattered more than noise. Truth told in its season has more weight than lies told early, my grandmother used to say. I deleted half the message, rewrote it. This wasn't just revenge. This was me drawing a line. I started reaching out quietly. Texted Desiree back home, sent her the files, asked if she could leverage the church elders. They knew my history, my sacrifices. Called Marva into the room, asked her to glance at the vendor names, translate Dutch addresses, messaged Tyshawn, the photographer, to confirm which pictures matched the decor I'd paid for. Piece by piece, I built a chain, names, amounts, signatures, images, not just me versus Quinzara, me plus proof versus her story. As the night deepened, the street grew quiet outside. My phone buzzed with small replies. Desiree, we're with you. Marva, those are real businesses, but shady paperwork. Tyshawn, got you, mama, time-stamped everything. A network forming around me. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. When the last attachment was uploaded, I pressed send on the mass email to the investors, copying the file, the screenshots, the contracts. No words, just the truth. My finger lingered on the key a second longer than needed, then released. A ping, my phone lit up. A new message. You going too far, mama? The lounge was quieter than the ballroom. Dim lights fell soft on the frames lining the gallery walls, rows of glossy prints showing Quinzara in designer gowns, flanked by investors, influencers, pretty cocktails in hand. I slipped in unnoticed, folder under my arm. My heels didn't echo on the carpet. Nobody turned to look. There was a blank space on the far wall, a plaque beneath it that read, "Reserved for family." I stood still in front of it. No picture of me, no acknowledgement. But the irony didn't hurt this time, not like it used to. This space was mine by right. They just forgot to hang me on the wall. I scanned the room. Quinzara stood near the drinks, smiling tight, eyes darting too often. The MC was chatting by the window. And Laurel? She was watching. Not just the pictures, me. I took one deep breath. My hands didn't shake. I walked slowly toward the largest photo on display. Varnell, my husband, holding baby Quinzara outside the first cafe we opened. He was smiling big in that picture, but I knew what he was carrying that day. I slipped the old letter from my folder, folded so many times it was nearly translucent at the creases. I cleared my throat and read aloud. She carried us all. Don't let her credit be stolen. That building, she paid for it. I just signed the lease. Silence followed. No one interrupted. Even the background music seemed to vanish. Some guests turned away. Some stared at the floor. Others looked at Quinzara. Her expression didn't move right away, but her knuckles went pale around the edge of her champagne glass. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. Then Tyshawn, the photographer, stepped forward. He hadn't been on any program. No cue card in his hand. Just a microphone he pulled from the stand. "I need to fix something," he said. I miscredited her. On the captions, the visuals, the event tags, those were her designs, her payments, her plan. And I knew that. "I was told to leave her name out." He looked me dead in the eye. "I'm sorry." The screen behind him lit up. Two side-by-side images, one with Quinzara listed as lead visionary, one corrected, with my name beside it. Then another, a whole reel. Murmurs swept the room. Chairs creaked. One of the Dutch partners crossed his arms, another pulled out his phone. And Quinzara? She blinked, just once, but the crack was there. I stepped forward, not rushed, steady, like a woman who'd carried heavier things than shame. "I didn't come here to embarrass anybody," I said. "I came to tell the truth. And if telling the truth makes you uncomfortable, well, maybe that's worth sitting with." I laid the folder on the nearest table, opened it slowly. Contracts, receipts, that same letter from Varnell. These are not guesses. These are not memories. These are records. I looked around. They say you can't change the past. But we can sure stop pretending it was something it wasn't. A few heads nodded. One woman, in a pale green dress, wiped the corner of her eye. "I won't play silent donor to my own legacy. Not anymore." These are the names of those who used my resources, my image, and my silence. Then I paused. Not because I lost my train of thought. I wanted them to feel the weight. If I need to release this to the press, I will. But I hope I won't have to. I'd rather this family learn to correct itself. A beat passed. No one spoke. Not even the host. Let history correct itself. I stepped back, folded the folder shut. Didn't look at Quinzara. Not yet. Then applause started, slow, uncertain. But it grew. And then, the camera flashes began. And when I finally looked at her, her eyes were already on me. And in them, just for a second, I saw fear flicker there. The night erupted before I could even step into the ballroom. Screens flickered to my name, my face, the words I once sent quietly between midnight thoughts. I stood between her and harm. In seconds, the message was everywhere. Phones lifted, cameras zoomed, guests shifted in their seats. A gasp here, a murmur there. Social media notifications exploded. My silence had become the headline. I stood at the doorway, heart racing but steady, watching the world pivot toward me. For years, truth was my ghost. Now it walked into the light, bold and undeniable. The insult came fast. A live stream caught a voice squawking across the room. "She's the gardener." The word echoed. It spread like smoke through screens and whispers alike. There it was again, the identity they tried to force onto me. A caretaker, not a creator. I didn't cower. I walked forward, past the flashing cameras, past the stairs. I held my ground. I locked eyes with the crowd. "Who said that?" Every head turned. The man near the bar dropped his gaze. Power shifted. Then the screens changed, lit with a post from Quinzara's own history. "I didn't invite Mom. She always held me back." It had been long buried. Now it was excavated. Commenters flooded in. "Read the record. Stop hiding behind family." The posts stack up beside my evidence. Together they formed a map of erasure. I took the microphone. My voice was calm, but it cut clear. "You cannot hide history behind selective memory," I said. "You can delete posts, untag photos, call me names, but truth, it echoes." The room lightened with that tension. Eyes slid between screens and faces. Whispers turned to nods. A voice broke over the speakers. Desiree, live from home, reading contract after contract, naming vendors. Marva's Dutch press contacts fed footage to the news. Investors leaned forward, some shifting in their skin, rethinking where their loyalties lay. Quinzara's backers tried to hold steady, but fear trembled under those suits and gowns. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout. I stood still. I held presence. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here so this record stands straight. You cannot build a future on stolen credit. Not for a company. Not for a family." The applause came in waves, first quiet, then loud. then thunderous, washing over the room. Cameras popped. Phones flooded social feeds with my name and my evidence. Through it all, I saw her, standing at the edge of the crowd, phone in hand. Her screen glowed. She was reading my email leak. A day after the storm broke, I sat quietly on the edge of the garden. Everything felt slower, the air softer. That morning, Mahalia posted a video. Just her, sitting on a wooden bench, no makeup, no music, no edits. Her voice was low but clear. She spoke about growing up with fear, of the world, of me, of herself. She talked about how shame passed down like a family heirloom. She never excused what Quinzara had done, but she didn't condemn her either, just laid it out in the open like a wound finally being cleaned. Then she said something that pulled the breath from my chest. My mother didn't ruin my life. She rescued it. Over and over. I didn't cry. I listened. Not as a broken woman needing approval, but as a mother who had finally been seen. It was like someone opened a window in a house I didn't know I'd been locked inside. Later that afternoon, I walked out toward the side terrace and saw Quinzara standing near the stone railing. She didn't see me at first. Her shoulders were tight, arms folded, like a child waiting to be scolded. I stopped a few feet away. "You don't have to be afraid of me," I said. She didn't turn, just kept her eyes on the horizon. "You may never love me the way I hoped," I added, "but I will never stop being your mother." She didn't apologize. She didn't argue either, just nodded slightly. And we stood there, not hugging, not reconciling, just sharing space. It wasn't dramatic, it was real. Sometimes dignity is just not walking away. By evening, I had everything packed in a small suitcase, declined the fancy room they offered, told them, "I came with a carry-on, I'm leaving the same." Desiree came to help, but mostly just fussed and wiped her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. "Mama getting famous now, huh?" she teased. I smiled, but she held my hand longer than usual. Marva walked me to the station. She carried my bag even when I told her not to. As we waited on the platform, she leaned in and said, "Still, like dust, I'll rise." Her voice cracked just a little. On the train, I recorded a message for the church ladies, told them I'd be back by Sunday and to save me a seat by the window. "Tell Deacon Harris not to mess up the hymn book order," I joked. But beneath it, I felt something deeper. I wasn't coming back as a victim. I was coming back as an example. Not perfect, but still standing. On the plane, I sat by the window. In my hand was a folded letter. Mahalia had slipped it in my bag when I wasn't looking. The outside read, "For when you need reminding." Inside, just one line. "You were never the gardener. You were the root." I held that note against my chest. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies. I had spent so long trying to prove I mattered. To them, to anyone. But now I knew. I did. The engine hummed beneath me as we climbed. I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was whole. A day after the storm broke, I sat quietly on the edge of the garden. Everything felt slower, the air softer. That morning, Mahalia posted a video. Just her, sitting on a wooden bench, no makeup, no music, no edits. Her voice was low but clear. She spoke about growing up with fear, of the world, of me, of herself. She talked about how shame passed down like a family heirloom. She never excused what Quinzara had done, but she didn't condemn her either, just laid it out in the open like a wound finally being cleaned. Then she said something that pulled the breath from my chest. "My mother didn't ruin my life. She rescued it. Over and over. I didn't cry. I listened. Not as a broken woman needing approval, but as a mother who had finally been seen. It was like someone opened a window in a house I didn't know I'd been locked inside." Later that afternoon, I walked out toward the side terrace and saw Quinzara standing near the stone railing. She didn't see me at first. Her shoulders were tight, arms folded, like a child waiting to be scolded. I stopped a few feet away. "You don't have to be afraid of me," I said. She didn't turn, just kept her eyes on the horizon. "You may never love me the way I hoped," I added, "but I will never stop being your mother." She didn't apologize. She didn't argue either, just nodded slightly. And we stood there, not hugging, not reconciling, just sharing space. It wasn't dramatic, it was real. Sometimes dignity is just not walking away. By evening, I had everything packed in a small suitcase, declined the fancy room they offered, told them, I came with a carry-on, I'm leaving the same. Desiree came to help, but mostly just fussed and wiped her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. Mama getting famous now, huh? She teased. I smiled, but she held my hand longer than usual. Marva walked me to the station. She carried my bag even when I told her not to. As we waited on the platform, she leaned in and said, Still, like dust, I'll rise. Her voice cracked just a little. On the train, I recorded a message for the church ladies, told them I'd be back by Sunday and to save me a seat by the window. Tell Deacon Harris not to mess up the hymn book order, I joked. But beneath it, I felt something deeper. I wasn't coming back as a victim. I was coming back as an example. Not perfect, but still standing. On the plane, I sat by the window. In my hand was a folded letter. Mahalia had slipped it in my bag when I wasn't looking. The outside read, For when you need reminding. Inside, just one line. You were never the gardener. You were the root. I held that note against my chest. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies. I had spent so long trying to prove I mattered, to them, to anyone. But now I knew. I did. The engine hummed beneath me as we climbed. I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was whole.